Hi, everyone. My name is Tayeb Bukhari, and along with my colleagues Justin and Javan, we're presenting a research paper on improving logging to reduce permission overgranting mistakes. This was authored by Bingyu Shen, Tianyi Shan, and Yuan Zhao of University of California, San Diego. Essentially, what we're basically going to be discussing is the concept or idea of not over granting permissions, or as we know as security practitioners, to keep the permissions as least privilege, which is the security principle. So we're not, giving a user access more than they need, which inadvertently can cause a security incident or a compromise. Some of the questions we're trying to answer, one of them here is what are the motivations for this work? And essentially, access control exists, as we know, to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive data. Basically, uh, if I'm a user, I'm only going to be given access to something that I need to work on and nothing else, because that potentially can uh, give me excessive access, which could lead to a breach or a compromise, or even an insider threat. The research discusses around the poor logging practices of today's modern software. The software does not provide enough logging for system admins to understand the issues that they're facing, or the issues that the users are reporting related to access. Uh, Existing log messages that are available are unfortunately not useful and do not provide enough context to the sysadmins, uh, which and then that does not help them understand or fix the issue. And unfortunately, this not having the correct context or correct information, uh, or incomplete logging information, that's one of the reasons where system admins may uh, overgrant permissions to resolve an access issue. As I said before, you know, for resolving a ticket quickly, a system admin with inaccurate information may grant permissions to a user which are not necessarily required, but due to the lack of information the system admin has, they're using the most likely it's a permissions issue, and then end up granting excessive permissions which were not required. What was the proposed solution? In this case, the researchers are proposing a solution called seclog, and my colleagues will get into a bit more, discuss more what seclog is and what it can do. But this essentially is a tool developed to provide system admins with the better and relevant logs so they can develop, or sorry, to resolve issues in a timely manner. It's also meant to help developers who are developing applications, software, to improve log messages to provide uh, informative logging to system admins, who then in turn can uh, correctly, quickly and correctly identify issues that are related to access. And then lastly, just the tool provides guidance and in an automated fashion for developers on three key aspects. So the developers need to know or can get some assistance with this tool on how to log. This is helpful in a sense where today a developer is manually trying to determine how to log the information, and seclog can offer a automated functionality, making it a also integrated with the developer, you know, from a developer standpoint. Where to log? This is important because if logs are located all over the place, uh, not only this can be troublesome for the developers, but also a sysadmin who's trying to troubleshoot an access related uh, help ticket or support ticket. They need to know exactly where to look so they can quickly, assist or first understand the issue and then also then be able to assist the user uh, in a quickly and a timely manner. And then lastly, just what to log. So today, as I mentioned before, logging is unfortunately sometimes incomplete or lacks context. If SecLog offers, appropriate level of logging, which would include the relevant details that can help which can help the system admins to address access-related issues. I will hand it over to Javon. Thank you.
My name is Trayvon Washington, and on this slide, I will be explaining how the work evaluates SecLog's proposed solution and what kind of impact that it actually shows. The researchers found that SecLog was able to automatically detect a huge number of missing or incomplete access denial logs inside real server software. It located around 380 places where no log existed at all and improved another 550 logs by adding key details that developers normally forget to include. These details range from basic information about who is being denied to more than 100 different variables that come directly from access control checks. And a major sign of success is that 70 out of the 114 improvements recommended by SecLog have already been accepted into actual production code bases. That means that developers are already trusting the tool enough to integrate it into software that people rely on every day. And the work also ran a user study with 32 system administrators facing real world access denial scenarios. With SecLog enhancing logs, the number of insecure fixes dropped 27 down to just one, which is a massive 96% decrease in dangerous decisions. At the same time, though, admins were able to diagnose issues over 60% faster. So overall, the evaluation shows that SecLog doesn't just make logging cleaner, it directly improves security, reduces human error, and speeds up the troubleshooting process in ways that matter in real environments. All right. And on this next slide, I'll be giving my own analysis of the problem uh, the work identifies, the idea behind SecLog, and how well the evaluation supports the solution. All right. And so the core issue here is that access denial logs are often incomplete or completely missing. When administrators try to fix a legitimate access problem, they essentially operating without the information they need. So this leads to guesswork, and guesswork often results in permissions being open too wide, which creates new vulnerabilities. SecLog's idea it's powerful because it moves logging from being optional or manual to something being automated and systematic. By analyzing the code itself, it can flag every place where access log checks happen and make sure those logs contain enough detail to be useful. This removes the burden from developers and ensures consistency across large and complex code bases. When we look at the evaluation, it strongly supports that SecLog's approach actually works in practice. The reduction in insecure fixes and the faster diagnosis times shows that better logs really do lead to better security decisions. These results aren't theoretical, they come from real people solving real problems. So, overall, the evaluation backs up the idea that improving logging at the source can prevent dangerous misconfigurations and give administrators the visibility that they need to maintain secure systems.
So that was a great analysis from Trevon, kind of on what the research paper was about and kind of his takes on it. What I'm kind of going to go over is the future direction for this research. So toward the end of the research paper, it mentions how this can be extended for the future and kind of any challenges that they faced toward the end and what they'd want to solve. So first, they wanted to extend the logging beyond C and C++ software. Right now, it was written, just for C and C++ in mind, but there's plenty of server type software out there, written in Java, Python, Rust and Go are becoming very popular now, and so extending that logging capability beyond just looking at C and C++ source. Also, generating human readable log messages. So it's still under the discretion of the developers and the maintainers or sysadmins to create actual readable log messages. It can give you, what to log and the variables that you need to log, but it's not going to give you kind of like a message, right? Like this is the server, or this was the target that the credentials came from. Also adding improvements for logging other applications like containers, microservices, cloud. Expanding kind of the scope of that access control checks that they're looking at. You know, there's plenty of other ways that access control checks can happen. Um, and again, now with the software, now we have containers, those microservices, and cloud-based applications. You know, expanding the scope of what to look for when it's kind of doing that analysis could improve the project greatly. Also addressing any security and privacy concerns. Again, logging ACC data is going to have a lot of secrets and private data information. So the current research doesn't really address that. Again, it's kind of on the developers and maintainers to differentiate what should actually be logged. Right? You wouldn't want to leak somebody's email, um, social security number or something like that. So, you know, to further enhance this software, for it being able to smart enough to know like, hey, you should not be logging this information, right? Also adding a best practice template for developers to use, for consistency across their software. So basically, again, kind of talking about the generate human readable log messages. Um, Again, it will tell you kind of what to log and places to log, but it's not going to give you like a good template, right? Again, kind of like I mentioned, saying this is the server credentials or whatever. Um, so they talked about wanting to develop like a template so that one, people would understand, hey, they're using their software, right, the seclog, uh, and also help the developers make it a little bit easier on them. If they see that ACC, they can easily know, all right, this is what the log looks like, and kind of have that template for them to use. So now I'm kind of going to go over what questions I have kind of about the research. So kind of first is, does the sec log analysis take any performance cost into consideration? Again, adding logs seems easy, but in terms of performance on software, it can actually eat up maybe a bunch of memory. It can also even eat up CPU. So, for example, let's say it's a kind of your logging was pretty lightweight, and it's logging to a text file somewhere or a database, and maybe the log messages, again, since they're lightweight, it's small, right? You expect maybe megs of data. Now, let's say you run the sec log analysis, and it adds these logs. You add these logs to it. How much performance? Like now, is it going to be like gigs of data that you're getting? Um, so that should be taken into account, as well as even CPU. Again, a lot of software, when it does use logging, disk writes, even printing to terminals and things like that, have costs. So, is it bringing up your software's performance on CPU like 10 or 20%? Kind of a question I have is, again, does it take any performance cost into consideration? Another thing is, what access control checks can't be captured, right? So I know that it's able to, capture a lot for servers and things like that, but are there ACCs that aren't possible? And one, what are those, or what is it missing? And two, are there any solutions for those? Another big one is, how do you actually put in rules and procedures to ensure that these developers actually keep up with the logging? It's great that SecLog gives this information and advice on how to use or where to place these logs, but how do you actually ensure that developers and maintainers are going to use the suggestions and put it into their code? Again, maybe it could be like a standard, like a logging standard. I think that would be really interesting. Kind of how there's NIST and ISO standards. Having like a logging standard, right? Like if the logs aren't created at these ACC checkpoints, it's gonna fail. Kind of this certification. And then finally, could it be configured for different levels of analysis for SecLog to do? So um, maybe at first, again, there could be again different levels to it, where again with any type of logging, there's sometimes debug, information, verbose, error, things like that. Something similar for SecLog could be again like only important calls, right? So when you do the analysis, I only want the most important ones that you think, rather than having hundreds of suggestions. Maybe there's 10 suggestions. That way, it could again help with performance. Only get the most important logs. Maybe that's the only thing that those developers, maintainers care about. Again, kind of following with those rules and procedures. If it's seeing every time that SecLog is producing hundreds of suggestions, they might not be so keen to implement those. Now, if it has like the ability to only do relevant ones or super important ones, it's like 10 or 15, that might be something that they want to, actually implement. Overall, I think it's a great project and adds a lot of benefit, but those are some of the questions that I would have if I was going to implement it, kind of in my software. And then finally, here's just the sources, um, basically the research paper and the link that we used for the project.